How is everybody doing? And welcome back for another Strength Chat episode. Today, I've got a very special guest for you all. Today, I am joined by the founder of Hoye Fit. He's the host of the Midlife Makeover, the largest summit to date for women over 40. And he's also the creator of the Diet Detox Method. Today, I am joined by the one and only Joe Hoye. How are you doing?
Man, I love that intro, and I think your accent makes it sound so much more official than any American could. So thank you for that. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on. I suppose the first question is, how are you? What have you been up to recently? What's been happening in your world?
Oh man, I'm good. Lots been happening in my world. Gosh, I started this coaching business 7 years ago. I'm sure we'll get into that, but through that, man, coaches need coaches too. And so 2 years ago, I hired my own business coach, and he kind of helped me figure out things that it took me 5 years, and I still couldn't figure out. And so he expedited the process, which is what coaches do. And since then, become good friends. We actually just became business partners, and I just acquired a nutrition coaching business nutrition certification business to certify the next generation of personal trainers, which has been really fun.
Nice. And how have you found? Because with having, I like the fact that you said this might be a little bit of a tangent, but coaches needing coaches. How have you found? Because obviously, from an actual education point of view, in terms of your own coaching, how have you found kind of trying to learn more about the business side of things? Because I know from, younger coaches or coaches just getting into the industry, if you like, sometimes, the business side of things isn't always as sought after until later down the line. How have you kind of
For
found that?
sure. Yeah, man, maybe it is a tangent, but it's a good one to go on, right? Especially if you have any coaches that are listening. Um, Everybody needs coaches. Coaches need coaches too. And And I think that a lot of new coaches or a lot of stubborn coaches, that was me 2 years ago, would push back on that, and just maybe their ego gets in the way, and they're like, you know what, like I'm a coach, I don't need one. It's like, well, bullshit. Like if you need to practice what you preach. And if you really want people to believe in you, then you need to lead by example, and you need to go get your own coach, and you need to level up faster, right? Like you should be leading the people that put their trust in you. And I think the best way to do it is to show like, hey, I don't know everything either, but I'm out here and I'm getting the answers so that I can help you better. And yeah, I mean, God, from the business point of view, coming from like a personal training side, I think it's a huge smack in the face for all of us, right? Like we get into personal training because we just want to help people,
Yeah.
right? We want to help people feel more confident, get off medications, like beat high blood pressure, diabetes, just fit in their bikini, whatever it is. And as soon as like we quit our day job, we're left with this like the illusion leaves that everything's going to be easy. It's like, oh shit, now I don't just need to get a result. Like I need to go get a client. How do
Yeah.
I do that?
Yeah.
And that's why me hiring a business coach for myself, I know people that haven't done it and been successful, but for me, it was just a huge game changer.
Yeah. And I suppose sometimes it's that thing of, a little bit similar to when, working with clients, you don't know what you don't know until someone says, you know, have you tried this? Have you tried doing it this way? Have you thought about this? Then all of a sudden it opens up this, whole spectrum of information that you're like, well, why wasn't I doing this before? And it's kind of that thing of, you always need somebody to or a second pair of eyes to see how you're getting on. So yeah, a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, I think that's sometimes an interesting question to ask, especially for coaches, just coming into the industry, if you like. Um,
Absolutely.
Now, I did a little bit of an introduction at the start, but for everyone listening who might not know your background in terms of, your own kind of education, your own coaching, your own podcast, do you want to give a little bit of a background to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Because I mean, for me specifically, that's always the elephant in the room. Because I mean, you did a killer job introducing me, but a lot of times, like I'll be on podcasts hosted by women, and these women are 40 or 50. And they're like, Joe's known as the man for fat loss and menopause. He hosts the Midlife Makeover. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Joe is this 30-year-old guy. Like, what is he doing here? And so man, for the longest time, that really pissed a lot of people off because they're like, oh, he must be here for the money. And so then I tell my story and it's like, oh, okay, now I get this guy. And so kind of a three-part story. It backs up to when I was 13 years old. Growing up at my mom's house, I'm an only child. I got two stepbrothers. My mom was my strongest, most consistent role model. Sometimes my brothers were in the house, sometimes they were at their mom's house. And man, I was 13. I'm sure you can relate to this, but like I hit puberty, I shot up super tall and I didn't gain any size, right? So I was super skinny, like I didn't know how to use or move my body. And so I was like goofy, uncoordinated. I wasn't that smart, like not good in school. I didn't have a lot going for me. And so a lot of kids recognize that. They're like, oh, Joe's like easy target. We're going to start picking on Joe. And so I started getting bullied quite a bit, which had a really negative effect on my mental health. At the same time, I was starting to hang out with some bad kids, do some pretty dumb shit that really wasn't going to like help my life moving forward. And my mom saw that. She'd been going to the gym for years. And one day she gets home and she's like, Joe, I'm going to go to the gym just like always tonight, but I'd love it if you came with me. And in my eyes, like, dude, it was perfect, right? It was like I was that tall, skinny kid that had no confidence, and all the guys at the gym had what I wanted, right? Muscles, their chest up, their eyes up, confidence. I was like, yeah, let's go. Like, I'm in. So, walk through the gym doors, fall in love on day one. And from 13 to 18, I went religiously. Never gained any size, but it did a whole lot for my mental health. It also gave me a really good outlet. And so that it made me happier on a day-to-day basis, but it took time away that I was spending with those bad kids doing dumb shit and focused it on something better. And so, I mean, God, if my mom didn't do that, you and me wouldn't be having this conversation today. I promise you that. So that's number one is like, I just want to thank my mom and give back to her and help other women just change the lives of their kids too. Number two, I go to college. I start pursuing a career in the medical field. I was going to be working in surgery, so I have to take courses in anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, nutrition, biology, all the things. Um, and with that, like I learned what creates change in the body, right? And I was my first guinea pig. I was like, well, cool. Now I understand what has to happen. I like fitness. I'm gonna put these two things together. I start lifting, I start eating in a calorie surplus the right way, but at the same time, dude, I'm at college and I'm 18. So like I start drinking my face off, eating Dominoes after that, and hardly sleeping. And so in the span of a year, yes, I gained some muscle, but I gained a whole lot of fat. So I went from 5'11", 145 pounds. So I don't know what that is in kilos. Um, but like I gained 80 pounds. I went up to 225. And now I had a new problem. Instead of being skinny, I was just fat and I still wasn't confident. And so I hated that. Decided to kick the partying, dial in everything I knew for nutrition. And then I reached the body that I'm in today. So like 5'11", 195, fairly lean. And people noticed, right? I came home from college that summer and everybody's like, well, shit, Joe, man, you're a different person. Like, yes, you look different, but you're also acting different. Like, you look us in the eye, you're funny, you're outgoing. What happened? How'd you do it? Can you teach me? And I had enough people ask to where I've always been kind of business oriented. I was like, well, I think I got something here. And it would be really fulfilling because I could help these young men avoid feeling like I felt, which would be amazing. So I started running these 8-week online challenges to either help men gain muscle or lose fat, start advertising on my Facebook and Instagram just to all my friends. And I get a ton of signups, dude. But I never looked at the names. And so day one, I open up Zoom just like you and I are doing right now. And I'm ready to kick off my first coaching call with a group of people. And I look at all the faces that logged on and paid me money and invested in me. And there's not a single guy there. It was just all a bunch of women that are like 40 plus. And I was like, oh shit. Like, what did I do? How did this happen? But I reflected on it. And what I realized is just growing up with my mom, spending so much time with her, spending so much time with her friends, I just learned to communicate in a way that resonates with them. And so I naturally drew them in. At the end of that first call, we had a ton of fun. At the end of the first 8 weeks, everybody got a killer result. And that was it. Like that was literally the day I decided. It's like, I don't care if this is not what I thought I wanted. This was fulfilling. I like this. These
Yeah.
ladies have struggled for so long and now they don't. This is what I'm doing. At the time, I was giving away, depends on the challenge, but like 500 to $1,000 to the winner, but I wasn't making enough money to be profitable. So like I would lose money on these challenges. And so obviously I had to get my job in surgery. I was doing surgery 40 hours a week. This in the evenings and just on my lunch breaks. And so again, like the last part of the story, kind of getting pushed in this direction of women is on my surgical team, right? I was a surg tech. So my role on paper was to set up the OR and then pass the doctor anything he needed for instruments. We had a really small hospital. There was no like residents, no PAs, nobody to assist. And so sometimes I would be the one that assisted. And so anything the doctor couldn't do with his own two hands, I was in there like retracting, helping suture, whatever it is. And I was spending so much time with these doctors. So it was myself, seven other women on my surgical team that had my role, and my higher ups thought it was a great idea to take the one male and stick him inside the OB and the GYN based rooms. And so it's like, okay, here I am again, like forced in this direction. I'm going to make the best of it. I'm coaching these women outside of the OR. I'm spending time with these highly educated professionals inside the OR. And so I start asking the doctors, I'm like, hey, doc, what could this lady have done proactively to not end up in the OR today? And so he thought, or she thought, I was taking that knowledge and applying it to surgery. Maybe I was a little bit, but for the most part, I was taking it and giving it to my ladies that I was coaching outside. And so, man, three-part story. Like, I want to give back to my mom. I still want to change men's lives, but if I want to do it, the easiest way to do it is to change their role model's life, which a lot of times is their mom. And so if I can make her fit, I'll make the whole family fit. Number two, I communicate and resonate in a way that they get and I have fun with them. And number three, I'm really fucking good at it.
Yeah, I think that's I always like to ask about the background of it because or background of getting involved in coaching and I kind of can see the underlying message of you just want to help, whereas sometimes again going back to newer coaches, they're kind of like, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, as opposed to an opportunity was
Mhm.
put in front of you and it's like a little bit like what you just said there. I want to make the most of it. How can I help? How can I help people? And actually, by training people's mums. It's creating a bigger cycle of well, right, they're going to be better role models, and then it's having a bigger knock on effect. And from the results that you get, it is rewarding, and you can see that it's making a difference, which is good. I suppose kind of diving into, I know before setting this up, sending over some topics, but you mentioned there about asking the doctors and the surgeons, what could this person have done to stop this? And there's a lot of things about these are the top tips. These are like the secret tips that people need to do. And I suppose my first question is are those actually like secret tips and tricks to help people lose weight? Or is it just a case of because, we're in the era of there's so much information, so many mixed messages, is it just a case of that, people just get overwhelmed with that information and they actually just can't filter it out? What's kind, if that makes sense, what's kind of your take on that?
Yeah, man, that's such a good question. Actually, nobody's asked me that, right? Of like, well, what were the doctors telling you? And man, it's interesting from my perspective today, 7 years later, because when I started coaching, I've said this before. I was coaching very wrong, right? I was coaching for this immediate result, this fast result, and I didn't have the foresight to know that nobody could keep it, right? And so honestly, like I got a lot of that information from just Googling, which is what a lot of my women do. And I got a lot of this information from talking to the doctors. And guess what? Like, man, we got to respect doctors. They're very, very smart. They're amazing at what they do. They're caring people, but they don't go through nutrition courses. They don't get personal training certifications. And so they're smart. I'll never take it from them, but they are not smart at the things that we're smart at. And so they understand these basically foundational bullshit things of you have to eat 1,000 to 1,200 calories if you want to lose weight. And so it's like, well, a doctor said it. I'm going to give that to my ladies. And man, today I'm almost on the other side of the spectrum. Like a lot of times I'm battling my clients' doctors because they'll go into their doctor and they'll be like, okay, Jenny, well, you got to eat 1,200 calories if you want to lose weight. And then they come to me and they're like, hey, Joe, my doctor told me I had to eat 1,200 calories if I want to lose weight. And so now we're at this battle because it's like, well, Jenny, we just got you up to 1,800 calories. You told me you've lost a pound a week for the last 6 weeks. Like, do you really believe your doctor? I'm like, well, yeah, they're a doctor. I'm like, but you just lost 6 pounds eating 1,800 calories. What do you mean? Right. And so what I'm getting at here is they didn't tell me anything magical.
Yeah.
There's no secret. You and I know this. Many of the coaches know this. And I think deep down, many clients and listeners know this, but there's no secret, right? The secret is just simply doing the foundational things that create a result across the board in a way that you enjoy so that you can stick to it for a long period of time. Like that's the secret is finding a way to love it.
And I suppose touching on that because it's interesting you mentioned there about kind of coming into like a conflict in terms of, well, my doctor said this, and you're telling me this one thing. I always kind of I can appreciate how like frustrating it must be for like for the client because they've
Mhm.
spoken to two people which ultimately the goals are to help that person, but yet they're getting told two different things. And I suppose this could maybe stem into the exercise side of things as well. You might have had this as well. Is some physios have said, right, don't do this, or some physios would say, yes, do this, and it's like, well, we can still do something. We don't need to stop it altogether. How do you kind of go about communicating that with your client? How do you kind of break down those barriers to be like, look, this is the plan that we're going to do. Still showing them. You've said there about you've lost 6 pounds in however many weeks. Look, this is the actual evidence that we've done. How do you kind of communicate that to make them stay consistent with it and not have just more like barriers come up towards them?
Man, it's so hard, right? I mean, there's so many people that have been successful in creating a result for themselves in a different way. And so for those people, that's the way they teach it. 'Cause like, well, it worked for me. I know how I applied it. That's how I'm going to teach it to others. And I'm not saying that's wrong, right? Like if somebody does anything in a healthy way and gets a result, like more power to you. I personally have gone from like serious in-depth macro counting to like strictly carb cycling and a couple other things. And now I've just reached the point where I'm like, look, I've gotten these ladies results doing 20 different things. Ultimately, if we boil down what those things were, it's strength training a couple times a week. It's walking so that you're not sedentary and don't get in a bad mental state. It's giving your body the amount of food it needs to thrive, but also lose a small amount of weight week after week and feeding yourself a good amount of protein so that we know that weight is fat loss, not muscle. And if you can check all those boxes, I really don't care how you do it, right? Like if keto works for you, good. I'll help you do it while following keto. Personally, I couldn't do it, but that's okay. I'm not coaching me. I'm coaching you. So let's make it work. And like the same thing goes for anything, right? Keto, carb cycling, paleo, vegan. I hate vegan, but if they want to do it, go ahead. Um, so I think it's just foundational stuff, meeting a client where they're at and and just making sure that they can get the result. More importantly, keep the result. Most importantly, stay healthy while they do it.
Yeah. And with that, because and you might have had this, you've mentioned some other, uh, diet plans or nutrition focus that people will come with you. How, because again, I might have fallen into this trap when I first started coaching and training people is, nah, let's do this, and trying to override everything. What's kind of the approach and best practice do you have? Do you kind of think if people, because more so with food, I don't necessarily find this a lot with exercise, is that people have really strong attachments to a way of eating. I think there's it's very personal. There can be emotions tied to that. There can be some more deep rooted reasons as to why people are doing that. What do you kind of, in terms of behavior change, what do you try and kind of tackle first? And how do you manage then that client's expectation of, look, yep, you can 100% stay with that, but we're just going to try and work on this and this until it comes to the point where they've changed their behavior, or they've kind of like bought into, all right, cool, so Joe's actually trying to help me and I'm seeing results and I'm going from there, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think that first world countries on average are doing so many things wrong that we can just create these micro changes that create massive transformations. And so I think in terms of like behavior change or thought change, one of the first things I try to do is kill perfectionism or that all or nothing mindset, right? Like let's say somebody has an 1800 calorie goal, a 140-gram protein goal, 10,000 steps a day, and they need to exercise 3 days a week. Well, if on Monday they don't hit their calories and they don't hit their protein, but everything else is on point, like if they have that all or nothing mindset, they view themselves as a failure. And as soon as they view themselves as a failure, that's when they throw the towel in. But in reality, 24 hours ago, before they got a plan, they weren't doing any of those things. So yeah, they missed 2 of the 5 marks, but they hit 3, right? And if they simply did those 3 all week long, I promise they'd get a result. And so a lot of times it's just showing that. It's like, hey, you weren't perfect, but guess what? You're never going to be. And guess what else? I've never been. And you're trusting me because you like the result I've created for myself and the result I've created for thousands of women before you, and none of them were perfect either. So you don't have to be. And give them that permission to just be a human. And number one, it works, right? Like we create a result. But number two, they feel so much better mentally to give themselves permission to stop being a robot and like give in to a donut or like skip a walk because they're tired or do whatever. And they still get a result. And that's how we make it sustainable too, because you don't have to be perfect 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's that whole idea of chasing perfection. It's not realistic. One of the things that I usually say to members and clients is, if you got 90% or 90% plus on a test, on an exam, you'd be like, I know I would be. I'd be buzzing. I'd think, oh, get in. That's really good. But I think people want to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think, there's certain standards that, people should hold themselves towards. You said there five variables to focus on, but if you still got 3 of them, that's still more. Where do you think? Because just going back to something that you mentioned earlier about the actual stats say you've lost 6 pounds. Why do you think, clients sometimes, even though the evidence is there, that they don't want to give themselves that credit. They don't want to be like, oh yeah, actually, I've done really well because, and you might have had this before. People will say a positive, I'm feeling this, I'm wearing this, and I've done this, but there's always a but. Why do you think that is? Is it confidence? Is it because they've not experienced that success before, or what's kind of your take on that, Joe?
Dude, that's a super good question. And I knew where you're going like halfway through. So if this is going to be on video, everybody's going to see my thinking face and my eyes going all over the place. Um, Man, I love that question. And I don't necessarily know why, right? I can confidently say that like across the board, it's not going to be the same answer for everybody. But but I think the biggest one I can think of is like it almost might come down to expectations, right? Like they have the expectation because of Weight Watchers, because of Optavia, because of GLP-1s like Wegovy and Ozempic that, man, if you didn't lose 2 or 3 pounds this week, you failed,
Yeah.
right? And so in 6 weeks, they should have lost 18 pounds, but they only lost 6. Well, that's a failure because again, they keep that perfectionistic all or nothing mindset and they didn't hit that 100% goal. So I think that messes with people. I think comparison is a bitch, right? Like, my God, my friend at work in the break room is down 18 pounds and I'm down 6. And it's like, well, great. You have no idea what your friend's doing. She's running a completely different race. Like, you can't compare yourself, right? Run your own damn race. Compare your results to the last time you tried this. And if they're better than the last time and it feels easier, well, that's a win. So, God, let's talk about those two things, right? Like, let's reset our expectations, which I think is a lot of times going to come down to the coach of setting those expectations. And I think let's change our comparison view to comparing outside of us to just comparing to our past. I'm like, well, what have I done in the past? Is this going better? Okay, good. Well, I'm on the right track then. And give yourself some grace. Like, you're not trying to lose weight and be in your ideal body by next month. Like you're trying to be in your ideal body next year and until you're dead. And if you can do that, you are amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I think they're two really big factors that I think a lot of people get hung up on, especially the comparison side of things. But it's that thing of you don't know what they've been doing. You don't know how long they've been doing that for. They might have tried three or four methods before they've actually started doing that. And as well, you don't know how they people don't know how they feel. They might have lost, 16 pounds, but they might be feeling miserable. Yeah, they might have lost, but they might have lost the weight, quickly. They might not be enjoying the food. They might be hating the training. Whereas another person might be losing 6 pounds but feel great. I think that's an important thing that to take into account and realize that everybody's going to have different time frames, different responses to everything, and I think the biggest thing is that's okay. Like there isn't a rush to be able to do that, and
And you know what? Like, let's look at foresight too. None of us can tell the future. But I'll bet you that if one person's losing 1 pound a week and one person's losing 3 pounds a week, well, at week three, person one has lost 6 pounds. At week three, person two has lost 18 pounds. But now let's look further ahead and see what's going to happen. Person one that's losing a pound a week, well, they're eating enough food, which means they're not really hungry. They don't really have cravings. They're getting enough sleep. They're only working out two, three, maybe 4 times a week. So they still have time to spend with their family, their friends, their partner. Person two is hungry all the time. They have cravings as soon as they wake up. They have no energy because they're so tired, like no energy because they can't sleep because their calories are so low. They're in a crappy mood because they have no energy. They're getting in fights with their partner. They're going to the gym 7 days a week. Like you cannot sustain that. So now if we look 9 weeks into the future, person one's still losing. Everything's easy. Person two, they started out super strong, right? It's like tortoise in the hare. But the hair got tired, they fell off track, and now they're right back where they started. So try and like future cast yourself too and be like, all right, how sustainable is this versus how sustainable is the person that lost 18 pounds?
yeah, definitely. And I think as well that when we're thinking about kind of in the future, and you look at people, you've mentioned, the results that you've had with your clients. It's a case of everyone always thinks done they must have worked out every single day. They must
Yeah.
have, not ate a lot of food, and they must have lived like a monk to get those results. Whereas actually, and I'm sure you can, relate to this as well. They haven't done anything drastic. It's just a case of, you mentioned it earlier. There's small habits that can ultimately create a huge change just by thinking. Because as well, the biggest thing, and this might be something that we touch on a little bit later, is I think people get so stressed out by trying to do as much as they can, where they're not spending time with a family, they're not, having social events. They're just solely focused on, I need to get my workouts in, I need to do my food, rather than, the whole point of it is to, enjoy what you're doing and enjoy life. Would you kind of agree with that?
I couldn't agree more. As you see, I'm taking a note right now because you just gave me a really good thought. I said, want the secret to succeeding anywhere, fall in love with what moves you ahead. Um, no, nobody's doing anything groundbreaking. None of my clients are, at least, right? They're not doing anything groundbreaking. We're looking at calories because that decides what your weight's going to do. We're looking at protein because that decides what kind of weight is changing, whether it's fat or muscle. We're looking at picking up some weights. Yes, especially for ladies, because you guys are losing muscle year after year naturally. We're looking at getting some sleep, just like you tell your kids to do. Um, Everything that everybody already knows they should be doing, but overlooks because there's something more sexy out there is what we focus on. And I think the biggest thing that we put a focus on for all of those, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, is just finding a way to do it that puts a smile on your face, right? Because when you get out of bed and you're like, oh man, the meals that I get to eat this week are so freaking tasty. And oh, after work, I get to go do my workout and I'm going to see if I can progress and do a new weight that I haven't done. Like I'm getting goosebumps right now because it makes me happy to think about this for my clients. And like when I get home now, because I'm feeding myself and giving myself energy or calories, like I can play with my kids. And man, when you get out of bed and those are your thoughts, and all those things that you just mentioned also get you a result Sunday morning when you weigh in, oh, you crack the code. Like that's it.
Yeah. I think, going back to what we said about wanting to having that have that goal, whatever it may be, like what you said there, being able to have the energy to play with your kids. Ultimately, it's knowing what your why is. Whereas, and I think this might be a little bit of a tangent, but um,
Do it.
I think sometimes people are maybe not. I don't think embarrassed is the right word, but they don't want to say what their why is. It's like, well, I'm going to the gym to lift weights. I'm trying to lose weight so I can play with my kids. Like that's a huge goal. That is like that. Like you want to be not thinking. And again, when you mentioned about looking into the future, all right. Well, what happens if you want to play with your grandkids? What happens if you want to, let's say, play with your great grandkids? Like
Yeah.
that's a hugely motivating goal. And, that's not to say that. So for myself, I compete in powerlifting. Not everyone has to do powerlifting. Not everyone has to do strongman. Strength is relative. Strength is relative. It's just a case of how do you feel? Can you pick up your, kids from aged, 1 to, I don't know, 13 or whatever? Yeah, all right. Well, that's pretty cool to do. And I think sometimes, knowing that why and that deeper root of why you're doing this can be a huge motivator to buy into those, simple things and be like, well, actually, my family's important, but equally I need to do this as well. Is that kind of your approach when you're finding out people's whys and, finding out their motivation?
Dude, you nailed it. So for anybody listening, real quick, like from a coach to coach perspective, you can really tell when somebody gets it and somebody doesn't. And for anybody that's been on the fence about like, hey, I listen to Steven a lot. I'm not sure if he's right for me. Like, guys, he's a good fucking coach. I can tell you that. Like, trust him. Um, yes, that's very similar to what we do. And I look at this whole process that you just described as launching a rocket from the Earth to the moon, right? There's multiple kinds of fuel that gets that rocket to the moon. It's a really long trip. In the beginning, that rocket is propelled by this like high octane rocket fuel that creates a lot of pressure and a lot of force right off the bat and gets it off the ground. But it doesn't get it to the moon, it simply gets it moving, right? And that's just momentum. And so in our case, for coaching, that's just motivation. But eventually, that rocket fuel dies off. And eventually, that motivation dies off. And if you don't have something to keep you going, you're fucked, right? And so, what I look at is purpose, what you just said. What is your why? And I don't like to tie my purpose to my client, right? I don't want my client to be like, why am I doing this for me? I like my client to think about why are they doing this for the 3 to 5 closest, most important, and loved people in their life. Well, what happens if I go from 250 pounds with a high A1C and I have diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol? I can't get up and down from the ground, so I just don't get down. I'm tired all day long, so I don't do anything. I don't take my dog for a walk. I don't feel good in my skin. So me and my husband, if we have sex with the lights off. What happens to your kids, your dog, your husband when you go from 250 down to insert weight? I don't care what it is. 190, 170, 150, whatever. And you feel confident. You have self-worth. You are off your cholesterol, diabetes, and blood pressure meds. You can get up and down from the ground. You have energy and you have confidence. And now you're walking your dog, you're playing with your kids, you're out running your kids, you're having sex with the lights on, your relationship is better. Like, if you don't do this for yourself, all three of those important people in your life suffer, right? And so now I point out, like, hey, yeah, you might be doing some things after work that look like they're for you. And you might feel selfish for doing it. But guess what? It is the most selfless thing you could possibly do because as you take care of yourself, you improve the lives of every single person that you love the most on this planet,
Yeah.
right? And so now that's the purpose, that's the fuel that gets the rocket to the moon. And that's what gets my client to their dream destination because they have a big, deep, meaningful why.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that, and appreciate the shout out there to everyone listening. I think what's really, and this maybe took me a little bit of a while to get my head round of, you want that internal motivation, and a little bit like what you said, it doesn't always have to be about, for you. Whereas, a lot of people will always, they'll do stuff for the kids, they'll do stuff for the family. You mentioned a little bit earlier where it was, oh, you tell your kids to go to bed early, you tell your kids to, eat the vegetables. Whereas like when you do it for yourself, you don't always do that. Whereas, the fact that, well, you're doing this for your kids, doing this for your husband, whatever it may be, from experience, you're more likely to put that effort in because, no one likes the thought of, letting somebody down. I suppose moving on from that, we've spoken about, setting goals, but I kind of wanted to touch on some of the barriers that people struggle with because uh, for some clients, it takes them a long time to, I don't want to say it's maybe not pluck up the courage to do it, but just take that leap of faith to be like, look, I'm going to try and create some change. And one of the biggest things is that, a lot of people and a lot of clients have said this to me is because I'm older, it's harder for me to lose weight. That's why I've not done it before. I suppose for everyone listening who have maybe said that to their PT, to their coaches, is that true? And where does that kind of information come from?
It's kind of tricky because I think that sometimes it is harder to lose weight, but there's a very specific reason why, and it's not necessarily your age, right? And so this is mostly directed at women because I've spent most of my career working with women. Um, but what we see happen is that okay, let me back this up. Let me explain why I'm saying any of this. We understand that muscle burns more calories in our body than anything else, right? And so the more muscle we have, the more calories we burn. If we have the ability to eat a high amount of calories, well, it's pretty damn easy to lose weight because we have a ton of food freedom. We can still have brownies and a cocktail on a Friday and lose weight. But if you don't have a lot of muscle, then you can't eat a lot of calories, which means you can't have that cocktail or brownie. And if you do, well, then you're above your calories and you gain weight. So at the age of 30, women start losing muscle year after year. It's just how it goes as a woman. Sorry. At the age of 40, well, now women are losing muscle at the rate of 1% year after year. At the age of 50, that number doubles and now it's 2% year after year. And at the age of 60, that last number doubles and now it's 4% year after year. And so strength training for women is almost kind of taboo, right? It's becoming less, but it's kind of taboo. It's like, well, if women lift weights, they're going to get bulky. Women aren't supposed to be bulky. They're not supposed to take up space. So women shouldn't lift weights. Well, I think it's more important for a woman to lift weights than it is for a man because of that exact reason, but they don't do it. And so what I see for my 40-year-old women, for my 50-year-old women is they haven't lifted weights. And so they lost a lot of muscle, which means they lost their ability to eat calories. And without the ability to eat calories, well, weight loss is really freaking hard. So yes, it gets harder, but it's not because of your age, it's because of your muscle. And if you simply build that muscle back, well, it's just as easy to do it as if you were 30.
I'm actually going to clip that up and I'm just going to play that in the gym. I thought that was a really good explanation because I'm a big fan of, sometimes how I would explain things. I'm like, how can I always say this better? And what's really
Yeah.
funny, last week I had a similar conversation because, we've got women in the gym who you can see that they want to get involved in strength training, but it is that entire thing of, well, I don't really, I want to do it, but should I be doing it because I'm gonna get bulky, and it's kind of that thing of, again, going back to myself keep competing in powerlifting. We've actually had a couple of women who are masters, which is 40 plus.
Yeah.
That's M1, M2 is 50 plus, and it goes up in obviously 10 years. We've had some women get involved in powerlifting and actually want to compete, and then they actually go and compete with and against women of a similar age who have been strength training for a longer time, and they're like, "This is pretty cool. It's such a supportive environment. It's such an empowering, environment, and it's kind of, it doesn't have to be that, looking like Ronnie Coleman, muscles, bulging. It's not, the amount of time it will take to build muscle, which is, don't get me wrong, there's some women in the gym who, they want to gain muscle, they like that, which is, absolutely fine. But it's, why is it you're doing that? Some people just like the feel of it. Some people like the fact that, they can walk down the street and be like, well, I can pick that up, I can pick that up. The whole point of it is to strength training allows you to lead, the life that you essentially want to lead. In terms of talking about strength training, maintaining muscle, do you find that a lot of clients that you work with, have maybe are brand new to strength training, or they've maybe had, because I've had this before, where they've not had a very good experience of strength training before. How do you kind of guide them to get involved in strength training?
Yeah, I mean, we see that a lot is women are afraid to get too bulky. And they've heard that a million times and they're getting coached by somebody like me. And I'm not by any means massive, but I have a good bit of muscle on me. And they're like, well, Joe lifts and Joe looks like that, which means if I lift, I'm gonna look like that. It's like, well, you're not. Your skeleton is just built different. Your hormones are different. It's just not gonna happen. Like when you gain muscle, yes, you will change in shape, but you'll change in the best shape ever. Like you will have that shapely body that every woman is after. You'll have tone, you'll have definition. But a lot of times, women, for me, they don't have a lot of experience strength training. So it's not like we get them into our coaching and it's like, okay, time to get in the gym, time to back squat, deadlift, bench press, bent over row. Like it doesn't happen. We're probably starting at home in the living room, doing some body weight exercises. They graduate from that quickly. They're like, okay, I get it. I'm sore for the first week or two. Now my body's used to it. I need more. What do I do? So now it's like, well, go to your laundry room, grab the laundry detergent. That's your new kettlebell. Or let me buy you some bands on Amazon. It's 15 bucks. I'll ship them to your house and do that. When you're done being sore, when that feels easy, let me know we're going to the gym. Then we get to the gym. It's like day one. You know what? I don't even want you to strength train. I know it's overwhelming. What do you like to do at the gym? It's like row, bike, stair climb, treadmill. Go walk on that or row or ride it for 15 to 30 minutes. Easy pace, don't kill yourself. And when you're there, just look around. See what people are doing. See how they're using the machines. See how they put the barbell on their back. Just take mental note, right? And now the next day, let's get in there. In the few that look the easiest, let's go use those machines. You don't need to crush yourself, use lightweight, just get used to the movement. And so we ease them in there. And man, within a month or two, where we have progressive overload in place, we are using compound movements, and they're getting stronger at every workout, right? But I got to meet them where they're at first.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Especially when, similar to when we're talking about people's results, people always think as soon as you start talking about strength training in the gym that everyone's going to rush to the weight section. It's funny when you mentioned there about going in and being on the rower or the treadmill or anything. We once did a presentation on basically how to. It was actually not so much about people new to the gym, but I suppose it was straight after COVID, about trying to get into the gym and just having that confidence. It's like thinking about, right, your green zone is like your comfort zone, and then it's like amber's where you're going to push it a little bit more, and then red zone is like those areas where you think, oh no, I can't go over there. But it's like, okay, we'll start in the green zone, dip your toe in the amber zone. All right, cool. So now the amber zone is becoming green. Right, the red zone, okay, just once a week, once a month, whatever the time frame is, just go and try those things. And then actually, because the biggest thing that and this is something I was been thinking about as we've been chatting here, is that perception is always going to be worse than what it actually is. And actually, when you go to try, a goblet squat, you try a barbell or a machine. It's never as bad as what you think it is, and that's where that enjoyment comes from. We've spoken quite a lot there, some really, really useful information, some tangents thrown in there as well, Joe. But I suppose the last question that I like to ask is, from everything that we've spoken about there, what would be your take-home points or words of wisdom for everyone listening?
Look, I don't care what you guys do. Learn to love it and make sure it makes you healthy. There's no wrong diet, there's no right diet, there's no wrong exercise. I truly believe that the best diet in the world is the one that you can stick to, the one that you enjoy, and the one that keeps you healthy. And the same thing is true for exercise, right? And so a lot of what we said has been super foundational, I think, um, because we both see that, right? Like, if you want this to last, you got to learn to love it. Like, Steven, you clearly love powerlifting. I love going to the gym, just pushing my back squat, my compound lifts, seeing if I can get stronger. I love jujitsu. And because of that, man, I get up on Monday and I'm like, shit, I get to do both those things today. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And by the time I go to bed, well, I've exercised a lot. I love all the meals I've got in my fridge. And I don't need to worry about falling off track because I love it. And neither do my clients because, well, we've built something they love. And if you can do the same thing, you are going to succeed and you're going to change the lives of not just you, but every single person you love around you.
Yeah. I think that's a really good kind of take home point to finish off. And, the key word that you kind of said there was the foundation, because, you can't build anything without a strong foundation. The fancy stuff that might see on the top of the building, that's after, a strong foundation has been laid, and they stay there the whole time. I've said to clients before, the foundation of your house, it never moves. If it was, your house would be going all over the place. They stay there. So it means, you still need to do those things, but you can add in different things for what you enjoy. So yeah, I thought that was some really, really useful information for people listening there. If anyone has any questions about what we've spoken about today, Joe, want to reach out to you or see the content and information that you put out there, where could people find you or reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Very easy to find. If you literally just Google my name, Joe Hoye, you will find me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. If anybody wants to get started with the foundational stuff, I made a 7-day challenge. That is your rocket fuel. Like, that's what's going to get you off the ground. It is 5 simple habits. There's no diets, there's no workouts. I promise you'll lose weight. I promise it's the easiest week of weight loss. It's $7. And I also promise every single person listening is worth more than $7.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Joe, for taking the time to jump on. Really, really enjoyed chatting with you today. Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will see you all next week.